Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video will be my top 10 favorite contemporary romances of all time. I technically actually have a top 15 because I had to include the extra 5. I'm not going to go super in depth about them. I will just kind of mention them, but I just felt like I had to mention them. Like, they are a part of me. I cannot exclude them from this list. So it is technically a top 15, but I will go a little bit more in depth for the top 10, obviously. And this is actually going to be my last favorites video for the romance subgenres. I have done one for all of the other ones. I will link them down below. I won't be doing a favorites video on historical romances because I don't have a top 10. I maybe have like a top 5. So I will probably do a top 10 favorite historical romances next year or something when I actually have enough for a video. I am planning on doing a overall romance favorites video where I don't separate it by subgenre. It'll be like my favorite romances of all time. I'm hoping to maybe do it in December or early next year. I will also be doing a updated favorite books of all time video as well. So stay tuned for all of those videos, but today is my top 15 favorite contemporary romances of all time. I will also say some of these are quite old and it's been a while since I've reread them, but I do feel like they kind of stick out to me as my favorite books, and they are books I have read more than once over the years. I have some new ones on this list, but I also have some old ones that you've probably seen in past favorites videos. I'm just gonna jump straight in, and like I said, the bonus 5, I'm just gonna quickly kind of mention. I'm not gonna go in depth about them. So coming in at number 15 is My Best Friend's Sister by Lexi Buchanan. This is book 3 in the Bad Boy Rockers series. Like the title suggests, this is a best friend's younger sister romance. This is also an age gap romance, and it does follow a guy in a band. This isn't the best written book, like it's not amazing, but it's super fun and I really loved the characters and their romance, and it's just a book I continue to reread throughout the years. Coming in at number 14 is The Rocker Who Needs Me by Terry Ann Browning. This is the 3rd book in the Rocker series. This is another like rock star band romance. It's also another age gap romance. This one's very short. It's also not really written the best either, but it is one of my favorites, obviously, and I just loved the characters and their very dramatic, over-the-top romance. This is also another book that I continue to reread all of the time. It has been a while, but it is a favorite and I cannot let go of this one. Coming in at number 13 is On Dublin Street by Samantha Young. I would say I love this whole series. I feel like the first book is my favorite, but it's been a really long time since I've read it. Our female character has a lot of tragedy in her life. I think she's a writer, I do believe, and our male character is like a businessman and he's kind of used to getting what he wants. It's very emotional. It's very heavy, but also sweet and romantic. I just love all of the characters and I love the romance, and I really love this entire series. Coming in at number 12 is the Gabriel's Inferno series by Sylvain Renard. This is kind of a forbidden romance between a professor and a student, as well as an age gap romance and kind of a second chance romance. I love this series. I have done countless videos on the books and the movies. I'm sure you're not surprised to see it on this list. It's just so good. I love the characters and I love the romance, and I couldn't not include it in my favorite contemporaries. Coming in at number 11, these two I could not separate. They are of equal measure for me, to be honest. I don't know which one I love more, so I'm just putting them together, and that is Quilty and The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. They're both slow burn romances. The Wall of Winnipeg and Me is a marriage of convenience, and Quilty is like an age gap romance. I just loved both of these so much, and I just felt like they were fitting to put them at the same position on this list. Now I'm on to the top 10. So coming in at number 10 is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. This is such a beautiful and wonderful, sweet friends to lovers romance. This follows Bree, who moves to a new small town, and she immediately befriends Archer, who is deaf, and he's kind of the black sheep of the town. People don't really interact with him, but she kind of sees something different in him and they become friends, and it develops into this beautiful, heartbreaking and heartwarming romance. I just loved the characters and the romance. It was such a good book. And when I think of favorite books or like favorite contemporaries, I do think of Archer's Voice. If I'm at a different angle, it's because I had to change my battery. Sorry about that. But coming in at number 9 is Marriage for One by Ella Mays. This is a slow burn marriage of convenience and friends to lovers romance. It follows Jack, who basically proposes a business deal to Rose. She is having like some family drama. She is set to like inherit this building, but she has to be married. So Jack offers to marry her so that she could run her cafe. This was super sweet, super cute. I loved the characters. It was also a very romantic read. I just fell in love with Jack and Rose, and I loved their story, and I really want to reread this book already. Like, I read it this year and I'm so obsessed with it. It was so good, and it quickly became a new favorite book. Coming in at number 8 is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This one I wasn't really sure if I should include on this list because I haven't reread it, and I first read it back in 2016. But when I did first read it, it put me in a huge reading slump, and I don't ever really get into reading slumps. So this one really affected me. It was so fun, so cute, so sweet. I just loved Lucy and Josh. I loved their romance. If you don't know what The Hating Game is about, which I'm sure you all do, it's a very popular book. This is a enemies to lovers, workplace, office romance. It follows Lucy and Josh, who are up for the same promotion, and they kind of have to compete for it. I really should reread this. I honestly should have reread all of these books before making this list, but I do consider The Hating Game one of my favorites. Like, I've always thought of it as a favorite book. Coming in at number 7 is The Learning Hours by Sarah Nye. This is a book I don't really talk that much about, but it is honestly one of my favorites. This is a college romance. It follows our male character, Rhett, who is a wrestler, and he is traditionally not like a good-looking guy. A lot of people think he's ugly, and he doesn't really get girls. He doesn't really get their attention, so his friends decide to put up this flyer of him with his phone number, trying to get girls to hook up with him. Our female character, Laurel, decides to take his number, and they start texting. This was really sweet, really funny. I just fell in love with the characters and their slow and adorable romance. Rhett is a really good guy. Like, Laurel is kind of mean a little bit, but I feel like she kind of grows on you as the book goes on. This is also, if I didn't say, the 3rd book in the How to Date a Douchebag series. I really enjoyed the whole series, but obviously the 3rd book is my favorite. Coming in at number 6 is Change of Heart by Nicole Jacqueline. This is the 2nd book in the Fostering Love series. This follows Annie and Bram, who have always hated each other. Like, they've hated each other since they were teenagers. They do not get along. They always avoid each other, and Annie, I believe, was adopted by Bram's parents when she was like a teenager. So they're kind of step siblings a little bit, I guess, but they don't share parents. So they really can't stand each other, but one night their anger turns into a night of passion, and their relationship becomes very complicated. I loved this book. I loved the hate to love aspect. Like, this truly felt like enemies to lovers. Like, I felt like they both hated each other, and even when they really got together or like had kind of that night of passion, they still did not get along, and it took them a long time to finally love each other or like actually care for one another. This was also a very emotional read. I loved the whole family. Annie and Bram really went through a lot with their relationship and their development as characters. I just absolutely love this book. Coming in at number 5 is More Than Forever by Jay McLean. This is the 4th book in the More Than series. This is a cute, beautiful, and heartbreaking friends to lovers romance. It follows our characters kind of when they're in high school or like beginning of high school and leading up to them in college. So it kind of follows their relationship through several years. It's a very emotional and heartbreaking yet heartwarming story. I loved Lucy and Cameron. Their relationship is so pure and cute in the beginning, and then you just see them like really build this strong relationship, but obviously life throws a lot of curveballs and it's very interesting to see them deal with all of that. This book broke my heart, but it put it back together. It was just a phenomenal book. I just really love books that follow characters throughout several years and you get to see them like fall in love and then have issues and still be in love and to work through all of that. I just loved this book. It was so good, and obviously it is at number 5 for a reason. For this next one, I'm kind of cheating a little bit. I couldn't separate these two, like these are equal for me, so I cannot separate them. But coming in at number 4 is Real by Katie Evans and Legend by Katie Evans. These are both in the same series, but Real is the first book. It comes first. I highly recommend reading the series in order. Real follows a fighter who is very troubled and he has a lot of issues, and our female character is a sports therapist, I do believe, and she starts working for Remy and their relationship is very complicated. Remy is a very mysterious and complicated guy. And Legend takes place several years after Real, and it follows a different fighter named Maverick who actually wants to kind of take revenge or kind of settle a score with Remy from Real. But Maverick ends up falling in love with Reese, who is technically Remy's cousin. I'm not explaining these books very well, but they are just about fighters. They are very emotional, very intense. I loved both of these. I cannot separate them. I think of them equally. Like, I love Remy and Maverick equally. I cannot separate them. I also love Brooke and Reese the same. I feel like they are quite similar. I just loved how captivating these books were. You just get really sucked into the relationships and all of the drama going on. I will say these books are a little over the top, but I just really, really loved them, and they will forever be some of my favorite books. Now we're into the top 3, and coming in at number 3 is the Fallen Too Far trilogy by Abby Glines. So book 1 is Fallen Too Far, book 2 is Never Too Far, and the third book is Forever Too Far. These are also the first books in the Rosemary Beach series, but there are kind of series within series with the Rosemary Beach series, so I'm just picking the initial trilogy. This follows Blair, who has recently lost her mother, and she decides to move to this new small town where her father is supposedly living with his new family and his new wife, and she ends up meeting Rush, who is technically her stepbrother. This series is super dramatic. It is really over the top, but I just fell so in love with Rush and Blair and their romance. I just loved them, and I will never part with the series. I have read this initial trilogy like 13 times. I know this series isn't for everyone because it is so over the top and there's a lot of back and forth. It's kind of exhausting. Their relationship is very unhealthy, but I just can't help but love this series. It is so nostalgic for me as well. It's like one of the first romance series that I read. It was one of the first series like I ever truly binged, and I just can't ever part with the series. Like, it is part of my soul. Coming in at number 2 is the Addicted / Calloway Sisters series by Krista and Becca Ritchie. I didn't feel like grabbing the entire series because there's a lot of books and they're really heavy, so I just have the first book and the last book. I just love this series. You cannot make me pick a favorite book in the series. Actually, if I were to pick a favorite book in the series, it would be Some Kind of Perfect. The first book, Addicted to You, follows Lily and Lo, who are both addicts. Lily is addicted to sex and Lo is an alcoholic, and they decide to fake date so that they can hide their addictions from their families. And it is also like friends to lovers and like childhood friends to lovers. The rest of the series also follows Lily's sisters, Daisy and Rose. They have their own books as well. The series is super nostalgic for me. I read it back in high school and I just fell so in love with the characters, and I have vivid memories of like reading the series. Like, I remember when Hot House Flower came out, I read it the minute it came out, and I read it like all night, and I have memories of reading Addicted After All, and I remember like bawling my eyes out. And I remember when this book came out and I read it in like one sitting. I just absolutely love this series. It is so close to my heart. I feel like I really don't talk about this series that much anymore. I think because it means so much to me that I don't like talking about it, which I know is weird. I also have like 3 editions of Addicted to You. I have this edition, the previous edition, and then I have like the old edition, like the first physical edition I have as well. I've been a fan of the series for a very, very long time, so I have like multiple editions. The series is just so emotional, and you just feel so connected to all the characters, and you just want them to be happy and in love. I just love Lily, Lo, Rose, Connor, Reich, and Daisy. I just absolutely love them, and I feel like I'm repeating the same words over and over again, but I love the series. It is obviously at number 2 for a reason. Like, it just means the absolute world to me. Coming in at number 1, this is my favorite contemporary romance of all time. That is Chasing the Moon by S.M. Soto. This follows Celine, who has had the biggest crush on Endymion, and he's always kind of been a really popular but nice guy, and he's never really paid attention to Celine. They've always had really interesting encounters over the years that Celine has really held on to. And one night, Celine finally feels like Endymion sees her, and they have this one night of passion, and sadly the next day Endymion really breaks Celine's heart. She is completely heartbroken, and she ends up leaving for college. Now 6 years later, Celine is back in the small town, and she sees Endymion, and she realizes she still has a crush on him, like she's still in love with him even though he broke her heart. And Endymion kind of sees her in this new light, and he's determined to kind of win back her heart. I feel like I didn't explain it right, but that's what happens when I talk about my favorite books. Unfortunately, I don't think you can buy this book anywhere. You might be able to get the ebook version on iBooks, and I think you can buy the paperback version on the author's website, but the author was exposed for plagiarism, and she kind of didn't really apologize, kind of played the victim, and then really left the internet, and a lot of her books are no longer available on Amazon. I obviously don't support what she did, and to my knowledge, she did not do any plagiarism with this book. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but it was another one of her books that she did the plagiarism with. But I love this book. I know that the author did something really shitty, but I cannot help how much I love this book. This book means so much to me. I loved the characters. I loved their romance. It was very slow, but it was so beautiful. This book has a lot of beautiful symbolism of the moon and the sun, which I am a huge moon lover. I am obsessed with the moon. I literally have a moon tattoo on my wrist. I just love this book. Like, it honestly spoke to my soul. Like, I really can't explain how much this book affected me. I just loved the characters. I related a lot to Celine. I loved Endymion. He was a very confused and complicated guy, but he was also like really nice. I loved Celine's relationship with her parents. Even though it was sometimes complicated, I still felt like she had great parents. I feel like there are not enough words that can do this book justice and like how I feel about it. I just read this book last year, like at the end of last year, and it quickly became my favorite book ever. Like, I am just obsessed with the characters and the romance and the whole story and just the vibe of the book and just how it was written. It was also written very beautifully, and I just love this book. I feel like I can't say anything else about it, to be honest. I just love it so much. Also, like, the chapter pages are really pretty. This one is for Celine, and then the one for Endymion is like sunflowers, which is so beautiful. I'm obsessed with this book. It's my favorite. So those were all top 15 of my favorite contemporary romances of all time. Let me know if you have read any of these books and what your thoughts are on them. Also, let me know what your favorite contemporary romances are. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, follow me on all my other social media, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!